This is CBN Newswatch.
And thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, could it be the end of the Netanyahu era in Israel? A new coalition group of politicians from the left and the right are trying to replace him, but that new government could face its own problems. Another media misstep, as some acknowledge they were wrong to dismiss the theory COVID-19 could have come from a lab in China. That, as a new poll again shows, the majority of Americans don't have much trust in the media. Christian baker Jack Phillips, who wouldn't make a cake celebrating a same-sex marriage and took his religious freedom case to the Supreme Court, now telling people of faith they must take a stand for what they believe, no matter the cost. And Americans celebrated Memorial Day. A look at some special Bibles taken into battle by soldiers. All those stories and more are ahead in today's edition of CBN Newswatch. I want to begin this half hour in Israel, where opponents of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are working to form a new coalition government and bring an end to his leadership of the government after more than 10 years. Left-wing Israeli politician Yair Lapid hopes to present a new coalition government to President Reuven Rivlin before his deadline Wednesday night. As Chris Mitchell now reports from Jerusalem, a new coalition government could face serious problems.
Yair Lapid is trying to form a coalition with parties from the left, right, and center, along with the First, an Arab Islamist party. This is the so-called Change Bloc.
The common denominator of the entire bloc is a desire to remove Netanyahu from office. Despite the fact that Netanyahu has been a very successful prime minister by many accounts, including building up Israel's economy, its infrastructure, and its military, Netanyahu has been a difficult minister to work with.
The proposed government took a big step forward Sunday when religious conservative Naftali Bennett said he would join this coalition. He would become prime minister first in a rotation agreement with Lapid. Before the last election, Bennett pledged twice he would not serve under Lapid, a key member of the secular left. The question is, can such a diverse government survive, and one dependent on an Islamist party?
And in fact, the Ram Party is a member of the southern branch of the Islamic movement, which essentially makes it a sister party of Hamas. And you would be depending for the first time in Israeli history on an Arab party to hold up the majority.
The political uncertainty comes at a time of massive pressure on Israel after its recent war with Hamas in Gaza by international organizations, worldwide demonstrations, and the media.
I cannot tell you what will happen. But one thing we know that our enemies are looking at what's happening here. You know, Hezbollah in the north, Hamas in the south, and mainly the Iranians are looking at what's happening inside. And if they will identify that we are weak, we will pay a price for that.
Lapid has until Wednesday night to present his government to Israeli President Reuven Rivlin. If he doesn't meet that deadline, the Knesset will have 3 weeks to form a new government. If that fails, Israel will go to new elections for the 5th time in more than just 2 years. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Here at home, Memorial Day marked the first holiday in more than a year where many Americans could go without masks. And across the country, people were out publicly honoring the fallen and marking the unofficial start of summer.
I'm feeling free. No mask.
A sentiment shared by many. Over the weekend, an estimated 34 million people hit the roads, and at airports, more than 7 million people screened between Thursday and Sunday, shattering expectations. Crowds also gathered at beaches, backyard barbecues, and parades honoring the fallen.
We can finally shake hands, talk to each other, enter places without masks. This is the way it should be.
The country is now reporting fewer than 20,000 new cases a day. That is the lowest number in more than a year. British intelligence now believes it is feasible the COVID pandemic started with a leak from a Chinese lab. That's according to a report in the London Times. And a New York Times writer to CNN that the media made what he called a mistake by not listening to Republican Senator Tom Cotton and others who talked about the lab theory, as did former President Donald Trump. Another poll has shown Americans do not trust the news media very much. The survey from Tip Insights asked people about the establishment media like the New York Times and Washington Post, National Public Radio, CBS News, and others to report the news accurately and fairly. Only 40% said they had a lot or quite a bit of trust, while 53% had little or no trust at all. Alternative media like the New York Post, Washington Times, Newsmax, and so forth didn't do any better. Only 29% had a lot or quite a bit of trust in them, while 60% had little or no trust. Tip Insights pointed out that many Americans think the media is part of the problem and a significant contributor to the lack of unity and misinformation in our country. President Biden will take part in a remembrance of one of the nation's darkest and largely forgotten moments of racial violence today, when he helps to commemorate the anniversary of the destruction of a thriving black community in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It started with unproven charges that a black man had assaulted a white woman in an elevator. A candlelight vigil was held in Tulsa Monday night, marking the 100th anniversary of the violence which led to the destruction of an area called Black Wall Street. 107-year-old survivor Viola Fletcher fled the mob along with her parents and her siblings.
I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot.
Up to 300 black residents were killed and thousands of survivors were temporarily forced into camps. Coming up, he took his battle for religious freedom all the way to the United States Supreme Court. Now Jack Phillips, the Christian baker who would not make a same-sex marriage cake, is calling on believers to take a stand for their principles. We'll hear what he has to say when we come back.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Many Christians warn the woke crowd is running roughshod over believers who refuse to compromise. Colorado baker Jack Phillips fought all the way to the United States Supreme Court for the right to obey his conscience. Now, in his book, The Cost of My Faith, he's calling on people of faith to stand up for their beliefs, no matter the price. Paul Strand has his story.
In his new book, The Cost of My Faith, Jack Phillips explains why he couldn't design and bake a cake for two men celebrating a gay marriage.
The Bible is pretty clear that God made male and female, and he joined them together in marriage, and marriage was his design, his idea. I'm not smart enough to do anything like that. And he created it unique and special between a man and a woman, and any other view of that would go against biblical principles.
Phillips insists his refusal wasn't about discrimination or homophobia. From the beginning, Phillips and his wife agreed there were many designs and orders they would not fulfill because of their faith and conscience.
Among them would be cakes to celebrate Halloween, cakes that had alcohol in them, cakes that would denigrate other people or belittle them, including people that identify as LGBT.
As for denigrating, Phillips takes issue with the labels and accusations thrown at him by the Colorado Civil Rights Commission, as it ruled his freedom of religion provided no right to refuse baking the cake in question.
One of the commissioners said that religious freedom was a despicable piece of rhetoric, and that it's been used for different things like, slavery and the Holocaust. And to compare not creating a cake that celebrates a view of marriage that I couldn't do, but comparing that to the Holocaust and slavery were particularly offensive.
The commission ordered Phillips to either bake the gay wedding cake or stop making wedding cakes altogether. It also ruled his staff had to go through mandatory re-education to teach them their baker was wrong. Phillips, however, refused to surrender, realizing his fight for his business, faith, and conscience could affect all Americans.
This has been so much more than just, can Jack go back to making cakes again or anything like that. It's so that every American has the right to live and work according to their conscience without fear of punishment, especially punishment from the government in this way.
His case was really important, right? It's about the freedom of all artists and all Americans to control what they say and only promote the messages they believe in.
Alliance Defending Freedom's John Scruggs was one of the lawyers fighting for Phillips. He was amazed at how cool and calm the baker's faith in God kept him through years of legal battles.
Jack lost numerous times before we got to the U.S. Supreme Court. And as us, the lawyers, we would get so frustrated, about what was going on. And he just had such a quiet faithfulness and trust that God was in control of the judge's opinions and of the results. It was really a testament.
Jack Phillips had a chance to show his true character and faith when outside Washington's museum, he ministered to a young gay man reading headlines about Phillips' U.S. Supreme Court victory the day before.
He broke into tears and he's like, well, what's going to happen to us? What's going to happen to me? What about our rights?
The baker assured the young man this wasn't a loss for homosexual rights and emphasized he, Phillips, wasn't some anti-gay bigot.
Tried to be compassionate with this young man and tell him, this is not who I am. I'm not a hateful person. I gave him my card with my phone number and tried to talk to him and say, you can reach me anytime at this number.
Phillips insists no matter how much pressure is put on Christians to conform to various agendas and what's politically correct, they must stand by God and their faith.
We still, as Christians, have to follow what the Bible teaches and follow Christ's mandates.
As he relates in his book, The Cost of My Faith, it's a practice he and his family continue to preach.
We decided which cakes we would and would not create. It was like drawing a line in the sand that we couldn't cross. And we still have to, as Christians, as Americans, draw our lines and know where we stand and know what we'll fight for.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Still ahead, a fight to keep an important part of Jewish history alive, one that goes back nearly 3,000 years. Now there's a battle over a unique record of that history. We're going to bring the story to you right after this.
Region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
18 years ago, a unique Jewish archive was rescued from Iraq. Now many fear it will be returned to that country, which has already driven out the Jewish people. As CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl shows us, a recent film says the threat to the archive is only a symbol of a wider ethnic cleansing that is going on in the Middle East.
This story begins almost 3,000 years ago in Iraq. That's when the Bible tells how the Jewish people were exiled to Babylon, located some 60 miles from modern-day Baghdad. After the exile ended, many descendants stayed there for generations until the State of Israel was established in 1948.
One thing my mom told me, she said, when you leave Baghdad, never talk about the stuff that happened. Don't talk about it at all. She said, nobody wants to hear morbid stories because whatever happened was morbid. I told her, but why? I want everybody to know what we've been through if we survive, if we get out.
Filmmakers Carol Basri and Adriana Davis agreed the story needed to be told. Their documentary, Saving the Iraqi Jewish Archives, A Journey of Identity, tells how this Jewish community faced its own forced exodus from Iraq after more than 2,500 years. It sheds new light on the history of this community, the struggle to save the evidence of its existence, and the fight to keep the story alive.
I've learned that it's a much bigger issue than just things from the Iraqi Jews. It's also about the cultural and religious heritage of all ethnically cleansed people in the Middle East.
The archives, to me, became the sort of physical embodiment of the way the community was legally disseminated, because there is a legal precedent that detailed the laws that forced the Jewish community out. If you can't work and you can't go to school and you can't even hold money in the bank, you can't hold property, how are you to stay?
Due to this growing persecution, more than 160,000 Iraqi Jews began fleeing their homeland in 1952. Over the following decades, Saddam Hussein and the Iraqi government continued to punish the community by stripping property, seizing religious and cultural items, and purging personal records, including photographs.
I don't know if people understand that when the Iraqi Jews left their homeland of 2,700 years since the first temple, we were not allowed legally to take anything out of the country except 3 sets of clothes and 50 dinars, and you could take your wedding ring. That's it.
I'm trying to go abroad to continue my graduate studies and so on, and word came back to show up at the headquarters of the internal security. They ushered me into a room where they were taking somebody out who was already being interrogated, and, it was all blood on his head and so on. It was a little bit of a frightening experience.
Fast forward to 2003, when during the Iraq War, the U.S. bombed the Mukhabarat secret police headquarters in Baghdad. Explosions ruptured the water system and flooded the basement. Based on an intelligence tip, Harold Rode, an Orthodox Jew working for the Pentagon, and others entered the building and found the collection of Jewish belongings underwater. With U.S. military help, they rescued nearly 20,000 personal and religious artifacts confiscated from the Jewish community, some hundreds of years old.
This whole project is a project of miracles. Hashem, God put me there. As far as I'm concerned, I was there to be there to help make this project work.
Items included Torah scrolls and prayer books, as well as documents of the Frank Eni School, the last Jewish school in Iraq. It closed in 1972, And its founder, Frank Eni, was Basri's grandfather.
The school that my grandfather founded was founded because of the Farhud, which was the pro-Nazi uprising in Iraq in 1941. Well, there was no Israel then.
The damaged artifacts were shipped to the National Archives in Washington for restoration.
In watching how that community left, to have miraculously found all this material, religious, cultural, personal material, to find all those items was to me the actual physical embodiment of the spirit of the Iraqi Jewish community.
The U.S. government's initial agreement indicated it would return the archives to Iraq, where there are just a handful of Jews left today. The State Department is trying to work out a new deal whereby the archives would stay in the U.S. The Jewish community is concerned that if it's returned, it will only be neglected or, worse, destroyed. And they say the items belong to them anyway. Iraq argues it wants to put the items on display as part of the country's national heritage.
I believe that the Iraqi Jewish story is an important story to tell, and it can only be told with the artifacts, the cultural and religious artifacts that are part of the Iraqi Jewish archives.
The filmmakers see the driving out of the Jews as the same kind of ethnic cleansing from which so many Christians in the Middle East have suffered during the last decade.
I believe that that is a universal story. It's not a Jewish story. As someone from not that background by birth, I understand the parallels to early Christians, or, even what's going on now. We just heard about it in the news when the Pope visited.
Davis says they need another miracle in order to keep the archives in the U.S. safe and accessible to tell the Iraqi Jewish story to generations to come. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, as Americans observe Memorial Day, the Museum of the Bible in Washington had its own special way of marking the day by putting Bibles on display that went into battle with soldiers, the Bible of presidents, and more. We're going to have the story for you when we come back. Stay with us.
Before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire. Monday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Thursday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
As Americans mark Memorial Day over the weekend, honoring those who gave their lives in service of our country, the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. also observed the day in its own unique way, with some very special Bibles. Jenna Bratter brings us the story.
There is a lot to see here at the Museum of the Bible, and in line with Memorial Day, there are several Bibles that accompanied soldiers into war. They tell powerful stories.
This is our Bible in America gallery, where we talk about the impact of the Bible from the Pilgrims all the way down to the present day.
Meet Dr. Jeffrey Clohot, the museum's chief curatorial officer.
We have several objects that relate to really both sides in the Civil War and how the Bible was a source of comfort and encouragement to soldiers on both sides on a personal level.
In this particular case, items belonging to George Room, who served on one of the first African-American regiments.
He's posed in his military uniform. So pretty cool that we have all from one individual like that.
It's neat to put a face to some of these artifacts.
Yeah, I mean, there's the guy in 1864 who was using this Bible, right?
There's also a very famous piece of Americana.
The Battle Hymn of the Republic was, a Civil War song. It was written by Julia Ward Howe.
Is that her right there?
That's her there, yep. And she wrote this actually just about a mile away from here at the Willard Hotel.
A song she wrote to bolster the troops.
And partly, she says, to replace the less than pious songs that they were singing, right?
Behind the scenes, Jeff takes us beneath the museum where they keep even more wartime Bibles. This letter written by President Woodrow Wilson in 1917, encouraging soldiers to read the Bible.
This proclamation would be printed inside these little pocket Bibles, which would be distributed to soldiers.
And then there's this one.
Yeah, a little bit of character. Now, this is a Civil War era Bible, and it's actually in German.
What's unique about it?
See that stain there? That's almost certainly blood that ended up on the Bible and left this stain, from the Civil War.
Wow.
So again, shows the cost of war and the price people paid to maintain our freedom.
One Bible is particularly special to Jeff.
Yeah, this one I threw in here. Now, this is not actually in the museum collection. It was owned by my grandfather, John Flack, who served in the Second World War.
Jeff's grandfather fought in the Battle of the Bulge.
This was given to him by his pastor. It's a leather cover, and you can tell it's quite worn. He must have carried it all over in his battle gear.
Back upstairs, more one-of-a-kind Bibles, including those donated by past presidents. President Donald Trump, and the museum's newest addition, a Bible from President Jimmy Carter, received just a few weeks ago.
Inside the front cover is the name and phone number of the Sunday school teacher from First Baptist Church here in D.C., and we know from presidential archives that he attended that church 60 times during his presidency.
And if you can't make it to the museum, several of these Bibles are featured on the museum's website. Just go to the Collections tab and you can find them there. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. I hope you will post, tag, tweet, and share this message with those who follow you. There's beauty in discomfort. It is a pain that helps to push you into your destiny. Don't look for your comfort zone. Find your discomfort zone and press on in prayer and in patience. With that word, I encourage you to make today a terrific Tuesday. And be sure to have yourself a wonderful rest of the week and do that on purpose. Well, that is a wrap for this edition of CBN News Watch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us. The address is right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. We'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.